Good morning. This is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and we are so very pleased to be able to bring you this webinar this morning on Ohio's Research Initiative for Locals. The webinar will be presented by Vicki Fout, who is ODOT's Research Program Manager. Before we get started, though, with the contents of our webinar, I would like to go over a couple of housekeeping items. For those of you that this might be the first time joining us on a webinar, we do have everyone in muted mode, and we would ask that during the presentation you please utilize the chat pod on the bottom left hand side of your screen to ask questions. The questions will be read to the presenter. At the end of the webinar, we can open phone lines for questions through the audio, but we do keep everyone muted in an attempt to control background noise during the presentation. Now, if you're not seeing a chat pod on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, please look for a round circle with a thought bubble in it and click on that, and it should open your chat pod. The other thing is that we are attempting to record the webinar. The recordings, however, aren't always successful, so it's great that you are here live and in person for the presentation and are able to ask questions in real time. And we definitely welcome your interaction on the webinar today, as Vicki is going to be presenting and discussing with you Ohio's Research Initiative for Locals, which is your research program. Vicki, are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you, Victoria, and welcome everyone. Glad you could join us this morning to talk about funding research to solve local transportation issues. We're going to talk more about Ohio's Research Initiative for Locals, better known as ORIL. Now, ORIL is a program that's designed to provide practice-ready solutions to real-world issues on the local transportation system. And when I'm talking local system, I'm talking about county roads, city roads, township roads, and villages. And approximately 84% of Ohio's center lane miles and 68% of the bridges actually reside on the local transportation system, which makes those assets the responsibility of the counties, townships, cities, and villages where they're located. Now, research is a tool that can be used to enhance the local system and discover ways to be more efficient, effective in terms of design, construction, maintenance of the roads, as well as making the system safer and making it more reliable. Now, ODOT has been benefiting from research for decades, but the findings from the research projects that ODOT does is not necessarily directly transferable to the local system because the demands on the system are different. There's different traffic patterns, types, volumes, right-of-way constraints, and so forth. ORIL strives to fill that gap to provide solutions that are designed specifically for the local system. It's a collaborative effort between the Ohio Township Association, the County Engineers Association of Ohio, the Ohio Municipal League, FHWA, the Ohio LTAP Center, and ODOT, all looking for ways to make the local system better through research. Now, the program itself is overseen by a board. Now, you can see the current membership of the board on your screen right now. Now, the duties and responsibilities of the board are to develop the program, they review all the policies and procedures, they select and recommend projects to receive funding, they select researchers to conduct those projects, they assign technical advisory committees to oversee those projects, they review the progress of the studies, assess the results from the research, identify items that have good potential for implementation, and then do general marketing of the program. Now, each of the organizations that are members of the ORIL program get to appoint their own representatives to the board. In general, the board members serve 4-year terms. The terms are staggered rotations so that there's some continuity among the membership. You may notice there are 2 representatives from academia on the board. Those members serve a 2-year term on the board. And the way they get appointed to the board is every 2 years, ODOT's research program issues a solicitation for applications, and anyone from an Ohio-based university that has experience in transportation research can submit an application to join the board. The board members that are currently seated at the time will review those applications and select from those who will be the academic representatives joining the board for the next 2-year term. Now, all board members are volunteers. They're not paid for their time or their travel or any other things they may participate in the program. Instead, all the funding for the program is reserved for the projects. Now, where does the money come from? Well, right now, ORIL has been funded by ODOT's research program. About $500,000 per fiscal year has been set aside to fund local transportation research projects since fiscal year 2014. And during that time, we've completed 27 projects to date. And I'm going to go over a couple of those projects so you can just see an example of what ORIL's been doing, focusing on, and providing to our locals across the state. A common practice among a lot of locals in Ohio is to reuse materials such as asphalt, concrete, Portland cement, and so forth from one project to widen an existing road or use as a backfill location at another site. There may be a variety of other methods that they utilize in conjunction with those repurposed materials such as fly ash, lime, fabric, and so forth. Well, it's been very easy for local transportation officials to compare these materials based on cost, but there was a lack of information available to compare the overall effectiveness of those materials in terms of the projected strength or the relative load carrying capacity of those materials. ORIL issued a research project that was able to develop and verify a low-cost, repeatable, non-destructive methodology to characterize the load capacity of the 19 most commonly used materials for road widening and construction activities. And you can use those when no established values are available. It provided a series of spreadsheets through the study that can be used to help you establish a range of a structural coefficient or moduli for the material you're considering to use for your project. This provides some confidence in the performance that you're going to get from the material, so now locals can use both the cost information they have plus the projected load capacity to determine what is the best material to use to get the best performance out of it. And that's exactly what Defiance County has been using with the results from this study. Now, prior to this research project, Defiance County had developed in-house a flexible concrete that acts like asphalt but is at a lower cost. They'd used it on a couple of different projects in the mix as a base for widening. Once the research was completed, they were able to have more confidence in the actual performance of that in-house mix. And as a result, they to date have used it on 9 separate projects and have received cost savings of approximately $1.3 million in material costs. You can download this report from the ORIL website. We'll give you the link here in a minute, so you can get access to those spreadsheets so you too can start using materials with more confidence in how they're going to perform. ORIL has also looked at stormwater BMPs. Now, for locals, you realize there is a plethora of options available out there to use for post-construction stormwater BMPs on linear roadway projects. It can be very difficult to narrow down and determine which one is the most appropriate one for your project. So ORIL went and did a study where an Excel tool was developed that can help assist you in selecting those BMPs to help facilitate your compliance with the Ohio EPA Construction General Permit. The tool will ask for specific project information that takes into account things like the footprint of the project, ongoing maintenance needs, aesthetics, safety concerns, and other potential impacts to the construction of the project. Once you go through all 6 steps, it spits you out a list of BMPs that you can consider using for your project. Now, the tool also includes in it some case studies on BMPs and an annotated bibliography if you want to get down into more of the details on the recommendations it's providing. It's to be meant as a screening tool to use early on in your project so you can save yourself time, frustration, and cost later on when you're trying to fill in a BMP after the fact. The original study developing the tool showed such promise, ORIL did a follow-up study to test the implementation possibilities of it, piloting it with the City of Akron, the City of Columbus, and the Franklin County Engineer's Office to more redefine the tool. Now, the tool is available for anyone to use, whether you're a local official or you're a contractor who does BMP work on behalf of local officials. You can go to the website you see on your screen. You can download the tool. You can also get the report that has instructions for how to use the tool, and you can see a presentation that the research team walking you through the tool, showing you how it works. ORIL has also looked at bridge designs. Now, on Ohio's local system, typically bridges are steel stringer beam designs that are supporting various different deck types. You can have wood, you can have asphalt, you can have concrete, but not all the bridge decks are concrete. Because there's different options available, the bridge rail system is often mounted directly to the steel fascia beam of the superstructure as opposed to the bridge deck. Now, while the system works well and there's no safety concerns with it, the existing fascia-mounted design was not crash tested and therefore was not eligible for use for federal aid reimbursement. So if a local public entity was trying to do a federal aid project, they would have to use a way more costly design for their bridges in order to make it eligible for federal aid. So ORIL issued a research project to look into a way to get a new design that would be more cost effective for the locals to use. And the researchers did develop a steel fascia beam post-mounted design utilizing the Illinois 2-tube bridge rail, and they were successful in demonstrating testing level 3 and MASH compliance with that. Now, in addition to the bridge rail, they also designed a transition system that will connect the new design to Ohio's W-beam guardrail system, which is one of the most commonly used ones on ORIL system. Excuse me. This design may be installed on steel bridges with fascia beams of a size W14 by 30 or larger. It provides an option for building steel bridges with lower cost decks because you can avoid having to build an excessive deck width in order to accommodate for the anchorage for a top-mounted bridge rail. And the system itself is eligible for federal aid reimbursement. So now there's more tools in the toolbox for locals to go to and have something that they can actually use on those projects. You can download the drawings and the transition details from the web link that you see on your page. ORIL also is looking into how we design pavements on our local system. And a project that recently wrapped up was focused on determining what the optimum percentage of recycled asphalt pavements you could use in a surface course mixture on a local roadway while still ensuring that the durability of the roadway is maintained. Now, it focused on asphalt mixtures with a similar aggregate blend, targeting the binder rating of PG64-22. The percentages of RAP that it considered was 20%, which was in the control. Then it also looked at 30, 40, and 50% RAP mixes. Now, we had 3 areas where we looked at adding a recycling agent called Silver Road, and 3 other sections that looked at a recycling agent known as Hydroline. We also had another control section of 30% RAP that had no recycling agent, so we could get a good evaluation and comparison all the way around. Now, in addition to testing it in the lab, we also put it out on the field. And the results that came from the study showed that one of the recycling agent was a little more effective than the other with fatigue cracking of the RAP mix when you're using a binder of more than 0.3. The 30, 40, and 50% RAP mixes had similar low temperature cracking resistance to that of the 20% control, and all of the mixes showed acceptable rutting resistance. The cost analysis from the study has indicated that using a higher RAP content of 40% along with a recycling agent can actually reduce the initial cost of the asphalt mix by at least 15%. Now, the initial findings that came out of this research were very promising, and as a result, the City of Columbus, where the test sections were put, is going to continue to monitor those and gather data so that we can confirm the long-term performance of that particular mix. ORIL's not just looking at how we design our roads, we're also looking at how we maintain them. And there are several roadways in Ohio that have heavy Amish buggy traffic. Now, these roads tend to see more frequent repairs as they encounter more damage. The project itself was initiated by ODOT to try to improve the performance of service life of partial depth repairs that are performed on these buggy routes and reduce their life cycle costs. We documented the current practices of the partial depth repairs that were performed on roadways with buggy traffic and those without. We also identified and evaluated some cost-effective alternative repair mixes and methods. Now, the findings that came out of that indicated that the service life for those partial repairs on non-buggy routes tend to range between 5 to 7 years, while on the routes that had heavy buggy traffic only lasted for about 2. And as a result, you can end up spending about 3 times the cost in order to maintain those buggy routes. ORIL came along and joined this study and expanded the analysis to include the local system. As part of that, an analysis of a special GTR test section that was developed by the Holmes County engineer was evaluated, along with expanding the look into the design of the horseshoes. The study indicated a lot of the damage from the road is coming from the actual horseshoes more so than the rutting of the buggies. Multiple different designs are being evaluated to determine a way that can be used to mitigate the damage while maintaining safety for both the horse and the buggy passengers. Now, this project is ongoing. We're expecting final results from this in April of 2020, but it's had quite the engagement, and it ever since it started. ODOT has been partnering with various counties who have been including townships in it, and the Amish community themselves have also been participating in the project. The Amish farriers have been very key in assessing different horseshoes, testing them, and in some cases even recommending some designs. Stay tuned for some more information from that project come April. Now, you may be thinking, okay, I've heard some of your sampling of your projects, they sound really good, and I think I've got an idea that could help the local system. Well, you're in luck, because ORIL is currently accepting ideas for our 2021 research program. Now, anyone can submit an idea to ORIL. You do not have to work for a local public agency. You can also be a researcher, you can work for a university, you can be a contractor, a consultant, you can work for ODOT, you can work for any of the local public agencies, you can be an MPO, an RTPO. Everyone is welcome to submit an idea to ORIL for consideration. Now, the deadline is November 1st, 2019. There is a form that you need to fill out online in order to submit. The link is on your screen. I'll give you a little heads up with the form, folks. It does not have an option to save your information and come back later to complete it. It is a one and done kind of submission. So I'd recommend, if you're thinking of putting an idea in, you might want to fill something out off to the side, maybe in a Word document, and once you're happy with it, then copy and paste it into the form and click the submit button. Now, in order to help you all out, to make sure that you're providing the kind of information that you need for your idea to improve its chances of getting selected, we're going to go over that idea form. Now, in addition to providing your name and contact information, there are 4 key questions the form is going to ask you. The first thing it's going to ask you to do is to explain what your problem is. What's the idea that you think needs to be researched? Now, when you're filling your form out, keep in mind what you put on this form is the only information that the ORIL board has to look at to figure out whether or not this idea should be selected as a project. You're not going to get an opportunity to come in and defend your idea to the board, so make sure you put enough information on your form that they understand what it is that you think needs to be addressed. If you could provide some examples on how you think it could be addressed. Do you think this is a large issue that needs to have testing in the field? Is this something where you just need to have a best practices to find out how are other people doing a particular procedure? What could be the best way of doing it to save money? Whatever it may be, make sure you put enough explanation on your form so they understand what the problem is and why it needs, what way to address it. The next section it's going to ask you is, what's the benefit? You need to explain by what we are going to gain out of doing this particular study. How is it going to benefit Ohio? Who's going to benefit from it? Is this something that could be applicable statewide to all the localities, or is this something that's more of a county issue, or it's more focused towards the cities? You need to explain how far-reaching your idea can be and what kind of impact you could have. That will help the board understand what's the benefit out of doing it. The next question it's going to ask you is for TAC recommendations. Now, a TAC is called a Technical Advisory Committee, and it's a group that oversees the research project, and they provide input and guidance to the researcher throughout the study. TAC should be individuals who have a vested interest in the topic. They have the technical expertise to provide oversight and direction, and they have the time and willingness to commit to the project. TACs will have a few meetings that they'll need to attend. They'll have monthly phone calls they participate in. They will be asked to review documents and provide feedback and comments on those. So you need to make sure that the individuals you're recommending are people who actually have the time to give to the project. The form will ask for you to actually name names and give contact information. If you're going to be putting down actual names, please reach out to those individuals and make sure they're on board with the study before you submit your form and just put random names down. That's a very surprising phone call for people to find out that they've been recommended for a TAC for a project that got selected that they didn't know about. Now, why is this important for the ORIL board? Because this shows that there is support for your idea. This isn't something that you just threw out there to see whether or not anybody would like it. If there's actually support for the idea, that demonstrates more need for the idea. Now, I mentioned earlier that research community is allowed to put in ideas to ORIL as well. Researchers, you may also want to bid on the project if it's selected as well. If you're a researcher and you're submitting an idea and you want to have the option to bid on the project as opposed to being a member of the TAC, In this box, all you need to do is write, I choose to propose. That lets the ORIL board know that if it's selected, you plan on putting in a proposal, so you will not be part of the development of the RFP or review of proposals if it is picked. However, keep in mind, researchers, just because you submit an idea to ORIL and it's selected to be turned into a project does not mean you will receive the project. All ORIL projects are competitively bid through an open RFP process, so there is no guarantee that the project will go to you. But by filling this information out and giving it to the board, they understand there is additional people out there who want it. It shows the need and support for the project. The last item that the form's going to ask you for is an estimated duration and estimated funding. This is not set in stone. The board will modify this based on their discussions that they have. What this does, it gives them an idea as to how big of a project you believe this is as the creator for it. They use it as a planning tool only to figure out programmatically how many ideas should we pick, do we have the time and the funds to cover them. Now that you know how to fill the idea form out, you might be wondering, well, what happens to my idea once I submit it? Well, let's go over that. So you fill out your idea form and you submit it by November 1st. That idea is forwarded on to the ORIL board, who meets in December to review and vet all of the ideas. They will be evaluating them and assigning scores to them. These scores are based on 5 different categories. The board, through consensus, assigns point value to each of the categories, 0 through 5, 5 being the greatest thing they have heard, 0, you probably need to work on it a little bit more. Each category gets multiplied by a weight that indicates the importance of that particular category to the idea selection process. Each of these categories, you may be wondering, what does that really mean? Well, when we're talking about alignment and relevance to ORIL, is this idea something that's responsive to ORIL's strategic plan, which, by the way, is available online? What's the overall value of doing this research to the ORIL program? Does it support its mission and its vision? Is it in the best interest of all the localities across Ohio? Here's a hint for y'all. If you submit your idea form and it says all over it, ODOT, 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 you're probably sending your idea to the wrong place. Keep in mind the ORIL program focuses on the local transportation system, not the state system. They're going to be looking at things like that when they're thinking about the alignment. When they're looking at the potential benefits of the research, they're trying to determine how beneficial will this idea be to Ohio if we choose to fund this. What kinds of benefits is it going to produce? Is it something that's going to be tangible or intangible? Are we looking at a state of the art or a state of the practice? Is this going to be something that could potentially improve a process? Could it save locals money? Could it save them time? What kinds of benefits will we see out of this? And on leading off of that, what's the potential that this project will produce something we can actually use? It could be one of the greatest ideas that we've ever seen, but the likelihood that it's going to give something that locals in Ohio could actually then take and put into practice and utilize it might be small. That's what they're looking at when they're looking at the potential application and implementability of the research. What will it give us? What are the risks for failure? Realistically, how long is it going to take us to get any results? Will they be relevant? Then they're going to look at those TAC recommendations to try to determine, is there a clear champion for this project? Is it possible that an adequate TAC can be assembled to see this project through if we select it? And the general consideration items that they're looking at is the problem clearly identified? When we read this idea form, can we tell what it is that they're wanting to have researched? Is there a clear goal in mind? Is it going to require some kind of assistance in order to do it, and will we be able to attain that assistance? And realistically, how much funding could possibly be required to do this project, and is that available within the program? So the ORIL board will look at all of those aspects, provide scoring for the ideas. Those ideas with the largest scores will move forward based on available funding. The ORIL board will then finalize the TAC development. They may add some individuals to that TAC to make sure that the composition of it is what it needs to be. They will then forward that information on to ODOT's research office, who will then work with the TACs to develop RFPs. Now, the RFPs will then be posted for the research community at large to bid on. The posting for the overall ideas will occur in March of 2020. Transportation research professionals will then develop their RFP, or proposals, in response to the RFP, and they will submit it back in for review. That will be due in April of 2020. Those proposals will go to the TACs, who will review those, and they will provide scores and comments back to the ORIL board, who will consider those in May, and then will announce who is selected to do those projects. And then the ODOT Research Program Office will work on contracting with the selected researchers, and the projects can begin as early as July 1 or later. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, okay, that sounds cool. I think I have an idea that I might like to send in to the ORIL program, but I'm not 100% sure. Is there any way that I can get some kind of test of my idea to see if there's interest in it or potential for involvement? Yes, there is. On the ORIL website, there is a thing called an idea discussion site. And this is an open discussion board that anyone can anonymously participate in. So if you're thinking of an idea, you might want to submit it, but you're not sure, go to the discussion site and post it. When you log on to the ORIL website, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner there's this really nifty little green box. You can click on that, and it will take you directly to the discussion site. This site is updated on the first and third Fridays of each month. And if you when you get on our website, if you sign up to be on our contact list, you will receive an email letting you know when it's been updated, so you don't have to go back and check a whole bunch if you don't want to. You can either start a discussion, or you can see active discussions and comment on those. All postings on the discussion site are anonymous. So if you've got something you're thinking about putting in, but you want to see if there's interest, go on the idea discussion site, start one, talk about it a little bit, see if anybody responds. Now, in November, after the ideas are received, the ORIL board has asked the research program to go in and post on the discussion site all the ideas that come in. The reason why they do that is to see whether or not there is additional interest or comments on those particular topics. So if you're a local and you're interested in maybe seeing what could become a project, you can go check those out. If you see one that you're really interested in, you can add a comment to that saying that you would like to see this project happen and you'd be willing to serve on the TAC. Now, we will not put your name on the website as a potential TAC member, but we will share that information with the ORIL board so they have that during their selection discussion in December to know that someone else is willing to join it. Now, we've talked quite a bit about how the program works. We gave you just a small sampling of their projects, and we've talked about how to submit an idea, but what really is the benefit of the ORIL program? And I think our locals who have participated in the program can say that better than anyone else. But in generally speaking, locals can get a lot out of participating in the program. One thing you get is answers to your questions and results you can use. It's addressing your specific needs for your situations and getting you findings that are directly applicable to them. You get assistance because researchers become an extension of your staff to evaluate and investigate techniques, technologies, processes that you've been wanting to know more about or try new things. You get access to national experts, and you get third-party independent unbiased experts who are providing you with recommendations on how to move forward. Researchers, you guys get another opportunity to conduct transportation research. And not just any research, but this is research that impacts where you live. We're looking at the local system, so you get to make a difference in your communities and in your neighborhoods. ODOT gets a benefit out of the program because it's a phenomenal technology transfer opportunity for us. The coordination and partnerships that results between ODOT and the locals by working on these research projects is priceless. We talked about the Amish Buggy study a little bit, and that was one where ODOT and ORIL were working together to solve an issue that both have. That's not the only project where we've had that happen. We had another study that was looking at waterproofing membranes on bridge decks, where ODOT and the locals joined together to evaluate what is the best membranes to use, and we found out a lot of interesting things. You could check out the website for more details on that. And the state and the general public, they also benefit from the program as well, because anytime you can make an improvement to any part of the transportation system, you improve the system as a whole. And with that, you can see on your screen right now our website that I've referenced a few times. I encourage you to go on there, check out all 27 of our projects, get information on who's on the board, pull out the ORIL guidebook, which is a very exciting, interesting read. You can submit your idea, get on the discussion site, sign up to be on our mail list. If you've got any questions, you can email those to our email account. I do want to remind you that our RFP solicitation, our idea solicitation is currently open and it closes on November 1st. And with that, I am free to take any questions you may have.
Vicki, you've done a phenomenal job because not a single question came into the chat pod, so you must have answered everything they were thinking.
But I talk too fast.
One question I do have for you, is there a specific time on November 1st by which they have to submit their solicitations?
That is a good question.
I thought that on your website it said 3 p.m.
I want to say it's 3 p.m.
Okay. But just wanted to make sure that they knew that they couldn't do the 11:59 submission.
But yeah, I'm going to pull that up real quick to verify that. But
okay.
I'm pretty sure it's 3 p.m.
And while you're doing that, I don't see anybody typing in the chat pod. What I'm going to do is go ahead and unmute everybody's phone line from our end. So if you have yourself muted, you'll stay muted. If not, if there's a party going on, you might want to tell them to hold it down a little, but that'll give you the ability, though, to ask questions. So I'm going to click the button, and everybody has been unmuted from our aspect. So if you, we definitely can hear some other people talking now. So if you want to unmute your phone line to ask questions, you are more than welcome to, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions you have about ORIL.
Okay. And for clarification, Victoria, there is no time limit for the ORIL idea. It is November 1st, so if you want to pull an all-nighter and at 11:59 submit something, you are welcome to.
Well, we will update our newsletter. It just went out as well because I think I put that 3 p.m. deadline in there. So we'll get that removed. That's great. We did feature one of your other research projects in our newest LTAP newsletter. It went out today. So I would encourage everybody, if you're interested in chip seals, to take a look at that newsletter. And we don't have any other questions coming in, but they do have your contact information here, Vicki, so if they have additional questions, I am certain that they will contact you directly. Thank you so much for doing the webinar for us today. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for your time. Feel free to contact us if you got any questions. We're doing a lot more cool stuff.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.